annexation process of the west side of Hialeah, the Miami Lakes residents could have gone to court to stop and prevent Hialeah from annexing the area west of 87th Avenue, but the opposition was dropped because it was agreed Miami Lakes and Palm Springs North would not get the burden of the growth of those areas. And look where we are. The executive session transcripts we wanted to read in preparation for this meeting would have given us the details of what was agreed upon, and we still request them. Please, thank you. And now, after reading all of the emails that were received at Town Hall on behalf of this, we found not a single vote saying that they wanted the bridges open. So we hope that a unanimous no vote is achieved tonight. I'm done. Thank you. Now comes Alex. Excuse me.
Alex Ariano, Lakeland, Ellen. We have taken this afternoon to review all the emails received by the town of Miami Lakes with regards to the matter before you tonight. Please vote no on the opening of either Northwest 170th or Northwest 154th bridges. After the review of all communications, we have concluded that one attorney stands out, and that is Mr. Keith Halperin, who has written the most thoughtful, probing, articulate, knowledgeable, and defined points of law we have read in quite some time. There are brilliant points made by most town of Miami Lakes residents, and we are thrilled to see a community that has finally rallied 100% in one purpose. There are none for opening the bridges, and all seem to agree that our way of life, our very survival as a community, hangs in the balance of what you choose to vote tonight. Vote no. Do not be burdened by fear. Take the risk. Do not yield. Do what is right. Stand by property rights and the rights of individuals who bought in Miami Lakes based on the promise. Therefore, the obligation of developers that sold Miami Lakes as a hidden gem, a normal Rockwell jewel in northwest Miami-Dade County. Thank you.
For our participants online, please just unmute yourself and you may start speaking. Just state your name and address. We still have like 8 participants from what I see.
Abel Fernandez, covered under Chapter 119. I'm a Miami Lakes resident. I'd like to talk and ask the town council to vote against this MOU being presented to you. This is in reality no different than what was shown to you all when we saw the public relations stunt on the bridge at 154th Street and the shaking of the hands. We all know the damage that these bridges are going to open. Let's let the process continue with the courts. The town members have spoken loudly that they want this process to go forward to the court system. We elect you as our representatives. This is a republic. We elect you to carry out our desires. The desires of this town are for members to go and have a peaceful life here in Miami Lakes, and that will not occur with the opening of these bridges. I'd like to talk about a couple of things. One is Royal Oaks. Royal Oaks is smack in the middle of the traffic pattern when the 170th bridge would open. Royal Oaks, representing over 1,000 homes, represents a huge tax base for the town of Miami Lakes. The homes on this side in Royal Oaks are a huge part of the taxes that you receive, and you're impacting us. You're impacting our ability to enjoy our homes, and that is not right. Let's talk about the park, Royal Oaks Park West, which is right just south of 170th. If the 170th bridge opens, you might as well rename the Royal Oaks Park Hialeah Park West, because everyone on that side is going to go to that park. Meanwhile, we're taxed and our monies are spent to upkeep that. I just don't understand what the hurry of this is. Why don't you just let this go through the court? 5 years ago when this began, I spoke before the council, not all of these council members there, and I said, get yourself an attorney firm that can represent this case appropriately before the courts. But you didn't. You didn't. The current attorney of this town said that he was more than capable to handle this. Well, he's not, because maybe the attorney of this town should say on the record how many individuals he represents on the west side of I-75. Maybe the attorney of this town should say what conflicts are possibly there with him representing folks on the west side that would benefit from these bridges opening. It's all a matter of public record. It's all a matter of public record. And I guarantee you this, not all of you up for election, but I guarantee you that whoever runs against any of you that are up for election or re-election will have my time, my talent, and my treasure. Whatever they need out of my pocketbook, I will give them to be sure that they defeat you and you no longer represent us here if you vote to open these bridges. And in closing, I am going to say one line from Joseph de Maistre. Every nation deserves the government they elect. Thank you for your time.
I see still like 5 or 6 different participants. Welcome to the meeting, and please just unmute yourself if you wish to participate in public comments. And if anyone here in council chambers still wants to participate, you're more than welcome, please. I saw you come in. Thank you.
Good afternoon, council, mayor, vice mayor. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to come talk. I always try to go down memory lane and go back to my notes and everything that transcribed and all the conversations we had. I'm only gonna focus on 2 letters issued by the Department of Transportation. Back when we started with the bridge conversations, we brainstormed and came up with a design that back in 2019 was presented to DOT. Back then, James Wolf was the district secretary. Here's the letter. The town interpreted this letter when it was provided to me as, hey, the DOT says it couldn't be built. I took the time to dissect that letter, and I took paragraph by paragraph. I said, DOT's not saying that. DOT's saying that it doesn't follow the standard design regulations, but that all of these designs are merited on a case-by-case basis. It even gave the town directions on how to file, and they even noted that the federal government owns that, and that we should be reaching out and filing an application to request the access to I-75. That was done on 2019. I dissected that letter. I went back to town manager Peterman, and I said, this is what the letter is really saying. They're not saying no. They're even telling you how you need to get it done. Move on to March 30th, 2021. Here's the letter from the current Secretary of District, Stacy Miller, annotating the exact same thing. This is owned by the feds. You need to access and you need to contract Federal Highway Administration. The proposed new interchange must connect to public road and provide for all traffic movements. Less than full interchange may be considered on a case-by-case basis. She even goes on to say that perhaps we want to partner with American Dream Miami and the Graham properties because they already have something filed that we may be able to piggyback on. I'm blown away. But here's the town's response when I sent my email in 2019 that said, there's a way to get it done and they're telling you how to get it done. This is the response from the town's manager to me. Ms. Herrera, the town's position as directed by action of the town council is to try all possible to prevent the opening of both bridges, at least at this time. That is why we have initiated legal action against multiple parties. If and when, despite our opposition, the bridges are to be opened, we will explore all options to mitigate the impact of such opening, including the options outlined in FDOT's response. What a waste of precious time since 2019, where we could have had an application in the way, where we could have been leading. I sat before councils over and over again. I said, the bridges are gonna open, and we need to get ahead of it, and we need to get control of it. We were told how to do it, and you failed to do it. And I have the town's position here saying that we will follow DOT guidelines if we fail. So here's where we are today. Anybody who signs that MOU or agrees to that MOU is against the residents of this town. You have to give an opportunity to do what DOT has provided us to do for 2 times. And now we may have the partners with the Grahams, because the Grahams have filed for it and we can piggyback on that. And we've done plenty for the Grahams not to join with us in this effort. Stick up to what you said you were gonna do over and over again. Thank you.
Thank you, Susanna. And I think you just logged on via Zoom as well. I just saw it pop up. So.
Anyone else for public comments? Please just state your name and address. Ms. Fernandez, I see you. We see you.
Good evening. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members. Hilda Fernandez, resident of Miami Lakes, address protected under 119. I'm going to be very brief. I will not even take up the 4 minutes. I think Susanna and other speakers have spoken to the concerns of the residents of Miami Lakes. I'm going to ask the same question I asked the last time we had this item for consideration, not as a special, call meeting item, which is, what is the urgency? What is the urgency in us signing this MOU right now? Why can we not get further concessions or considerations in our MOU beyond what I have read so far in the MOU, which is basically the same thing as what we had the first time? It seems like nothing has changed. It seems like all of the outpouring of concern, all of the time that was taken with multiple residents of this community coming out to speak either on Zoom or in person last time, and the other times that this has come up for discussion, that it's just, honestly, there's a defeatist, a sense of defeatism that, we got to move on and we're going to have to sign this MOU because we're the little people in the game and what have you. Again, the question for you today is, what is the sense of urgency that you're willing to sign an MOU that's going to basically sign away our right to take any kind of proactive action and try to get a better deal for this town? There is exactly one road in West Miami Lakes, one road, one arterial road. Everything else is a canal or a highway. I feel for the residents of West Hialeah, the other side of I-75, because they're stuck with one road that is not connected to anything. They need to resolve that issue with their elected officials. Tonight we're asking our elected officials to protect our rights as the owners of only one road through our town, and ensuring that we can continue to use our roads like they have been intended, and not to fulfill the needs of a community that has been overgrown, overzoned, and now has no way to be able to access good arterial roads. With that, please, the recommendation is to not take action tonight, to continue to see what additional resolution there could be, to look at those options that have been presented and clearly articulated by FDOT were possible, but were never pursued for whatever reason by the town. Thank you very much and have a great evening.
Thank you, Hilda.
Anyone else for public comments? So in the meantime, Mayor and council members, I have left 2 emails that were sent to me earlier today, written public comments. One is from Ms. Bonnie Cintron, and I shared that with you earlier today as well. And the other written public comment is from Ms. Reynolds, and it's an email that she asked me to share with all of you, and I believe it has it's including several emails from different individuals asking you to consider this item. And the names of the individuals are Rene Cambert, Harry, I don't have a last name, but Mr. Harry, Alcides Ancelina, Rocio Garcia, Alexander Ariano, Boris Foster, Ms. Cintron, Ms. Tina Gallinar, Rafael and Georgina Luces, And I believe those are all the emails included in the email that I received earlier today from Ms. Hope Reynolds asking me to share with all of you, which I did earlier today. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. At this moment, we are closing public comments. Public comments is closed. We are on to the next item, which is the new business item on the MOU. I don't know if Councilman Vice Mayor Rodriguez wants to start it off, or the town attorney, either or.
I
know
can
both
start.
of you guys worked on this.
You want me to start? Yeah. All right, a resolution of the Town Council of the Town of Miami Lakes, Florida, approving a memorandum of understanding between Miami-Dade County and the City of Hialeah concerning settlement of disputes being litigated in the matter of Town of Miami Lakes versus Miami-Dade County, City of Hialeah et al., case number 2019-29261, CA01, providing authority to the town mayor, providing authority to of town officials, providing for an incorporation of recitals, and providing for an effective date. All right. You have before you today a proposal for resolution of the litigation. You need to understand that no one here, none of us, what are there, 10 of us here, think that this is something that we should be jumping for joy for. I'm not trying to sell you a deal. No one is trying to sell you a deal. I described it in a rather graphic, unfortunate fashion during one of our at least 4 executive sessions. This is not something to be proud of. It is not something for our residents or anyone else to jump for joy over. This is a settlement where we have sat down over the past 2 years trying to resolve this dispute. Before the 3rd District Court of Appeals opinion came out, we were negotiating something incredibly different than this. Thereafter, the 3rd District Court of Appeals decision came out, and the leverage changed. So the negotiating terms changed. I spoke to my opponents during the appeal and advised them, if we prevail on this appeal, our negotiating positions will change. The appeal went through, and our negotiating position changed. You need to understand what the agreement, what the road transfer agreement says. And I've explained to you this in any number of sessions. I've explained it to you all in private, in conversations. I wrote you a very extensive memo this morning about what those issues are. I believe you know what the issues are. I am not going to discuss them in open session. This agreement hasn't passed this council. This agreement hasn't passed Hialeah's council, and the agreement hasn't passed Miami-Dade County's council. And it may not pass Miami-Dade County's council. This is an agreement based on many discussions that we've had with all of you having some input into it. There isn't a single member up here on this dais who got everything they wanted in the agreement. None of you did. And I understand that. There have been unpleasant discussions at times because of it. But the one thing I know is every one of you has their heart in the right place when it comes to this. I've seen the emails where we're being accused of, I don't know how else to put it, being weak. This is a town that's 6 square miles wide, of 30,000 residents, has filed a lawsuit against Miami-Dade County, Hialeah, which I think is the 3rd largest city in the state, if I'm not mistaken, 5th largest city in the state, a publicly traded company, and a very large engineering company, and have gone toe-to-toe with them for 3 years. And we are now in a position where an appellate court states that we have a cause of action. But that's all, that we allege a cause of action. That doesn't mean we prevail. That doesn't mean we win. They get to come up with all of their defenses, which I went through with you a whole bunch of times and in detail. And unfortunately for the residents, I can't disclose them now because my opponents are watching. I'm telling you they are, because they told me they would be. And I am not going to sit here and tell them, using this video, to go in front of a judge, hey, Gustesi says here are some of the weak points in his case, and we agree with him, Judge. That's what will happen, and I'm not willing to do that. To sit here and say that we are being weak, or we are caving in, or that we don't have enough guns or whatever, that's ridiculous. And that's unacceptable to me. It's an offense to me. And frankly, I have the personality where when I think my client, or in this case, you all are being wrongfully tagged, I'll stand up for it. And it's not okay. Unfortunately, there's far too many people who, because you don't agree with them, think you must be bought and sold. Because God forbid, you should have a differing opinion. And that's completely unacceptable in the public discourse today. The reason for the urgency, for me it's not urgency because I've been doing it for so long. The reason for the urgency is because this is how this case is going to play out. I am going to file a motion tomorrow, if this passes, to abate the cause of action, meaning to stop the litigation, and to give the city of Hialeah a chance to approve this, to give Miami-Dade County an opportunity to approve it. If they won't put it on the agenda, because remember, the commissioner on the other side of the expressway is the council president, or not council president, the chairman of the council. It's a very powerful position. It means a lot procedurally. Assuming that the city of Hialeah passes it, which I don't know that they will, and assuming that the county commission does not pass it, if they don't, then what's going to happen is they're going to file motions. I have to add FDOT as a defendant. Then they're going to start filing motions. And they're going to start trying to open the bridge. It's almost there. They're going to tell their contractors, we have a building permit, because they have a building permit to build. Because what they did in October of 2021, which I think is completely illegal, is they enacted a ordinance that says they are the ones that issue building permits in Miami-Dade County on roads. And they designated 170th as one of those roads specifically. The ordinance provides that once a building permit is applied for, that they will send our council, in this case, a notice where we have 30 days for input, not to object, for input. We gave that input. They issued the permit, frankly, I believe, before we even gave the input. So the permit is issued. They're going to start constructing. We're going to have to run into court to stop them. Or they're going to bring it to a head. I'm not sure. But one or the other of us is going to bring this to a head very, very quickly. Between 30 and 45 days, probably, from that point forward. That's when it's going to start happening. There's many different scenarios in which it can come to a head. And if the judge says, you have to wait, he is going to put us on a rocket docket. He is going to let us do minimal discovery, make us do it very quickly, and he's going to want to have a hearing very, very quickly. That's what's going to happen. The Pizzi case was at the trial court level, if I'm not mistaken, for less than 60 days. And then it went to the appeals court, and the appeals court entered an order expediting the appeal for 30 days. It will happen in this case. This case will not come to a head in 2 or 3 years. That's not going to happen, at least in my humble opinion. The issue of the blank line with the yellow. As you all know, the reason the blank line is in the yellow is because I wasn't sure what to put in there, and we've had this discussion going back and forth, and I wanted to have the discussion on the dais as to where we want to go with that, because there's been a lot of discussion. It's not easy. We have to decide. Whatever we decide here has to be able to be put on a sign. Because I can put all the classes, Carlos Acota has given us those different levels of classes and everything else, and it's very difficult to put on a sign. So my thinking on that was, okay, and the manager and I have spoken about it today, I put gross vehicle weight. I believe the term has to be gross, what is it?
There's gross vehicle weight and gross vehicle weight rating.
Rating.
I was chasing down UPS trucks, FedEx trucks, Amazon trucks, and today when I went home for dinner, I happened to have found a UPS truck in front of my house delivering packages. And I was able to get a snapshot of the placard in there, and they are rated by gross vehicle weight rating, which means the curb weight, which is the truck and full of fuel. Then it also includes cargo, passengers. It's the full weight. And for a UPS truck, it was 23,000 pounds gross vehicle weight rating.
All right. The other thing I need to change is the last whereas clause. It has to say approvals necessary for on ramps with an S, and then where it says slip ramps, add an S to that. And then in B, 6B, in the event that slip ramps, and then obviously put are constructed. Lawrence? Okay. Look, it's ultimately your decision whether to pass this resolution. Based on everything I've told you, I think we should. This is something that's been negotiated extensively. Josh has had input, Jeff has had input, you're all lawyers, my law firm, law firms from the county, we've all had, our hands on this. This is the best that the county will agree to and that Hialeah will agree to. It doesn't mean we have to accept it just because they're willing to do it. That is nowhere near what I am saying or proposing to you. But we need to make a decision. This is the best that we can negotiate. We have been in meetings. Some of you have been in meetings and discussed it in personal meetings here at Town Hall with Mayor Bovo and his legal team. We have been in meetings, various meetings with Mr. Libhaber, which is the lead counsel for the county on this, Jimmy Morales, who's essentially the county manager. You've all had numerous discussions with other representatives and people. This is the best we can do. And you have to make a decision, because if not, I have to litigate. And I'm perfectly willing to do it. We are not outgunned, as the 3rd District Court of Appeals decision shows. It is not an issue of my law firm having clients on the other side. That's ridiculous. It's a matter of, this is where we are, and this is why it's time sensitive. This is coming to a head. And the time to decide is now. I'm willing to do what you prefer. I recommend that you proceed with this deal, but it's always and certainly up to you.
Thank you, Mr. Attorney. Any motions on the table so we can move on with discussion?
I'll move it to approve it for discussion.
I'll second it for discussion.
If it's okay, I know the attorney mentioned that 2 of our council members worked on some of the language. If you guys want to go first in any discussion, and I'll go to everybody else, because I am positive everybody's going to want to chime in on this.
I will defer to the vice mayor, since he was there at the negotiating table and therefore was there for most of the development of the MOU, and then I'll come in and clean up and explain my positions or my contributions to the MOU.
I'll recognize everybody else, because everybody's going to want to chime in on this.
Thank you, Mayor. Okay, those of you who saw the town hall that we had a couple weeks ago, we pretty much laid out our current position right now. And one thing that the attorney failed to mention is the reason we got to the 3rd District Court of Appeal is because we were thrown out of court at the circuit level. The judge, who is still our judge, believes that we did not even state a cause of action for our position. It gets sent up to the 3rd DCA, where we have a favorable ruling, except not onto the facts of the case. The reason why I believe, and I stated it at the town hall meeting, the reason why I believe that this is the best thing for the town is because the alternative is the fight to the death. Don't throw in the towel, right? Let's keep going. What will happen if we do that, the potential is we will end up with 2 bridges open in less than 4 or 5 years, because we'll litigate 170th. We'll take it all as far as we can get it. If we lose that case, they're going to use the same exact argument. When I say they, I mean Miami-Dade County. They're going to use the same exact argument on 154th. And they're going to try to open that. And we'll fight it, and we'll litigate it for 2, maybe 3 years. And we're going to end up with 2 bridges open and no control over what happens over those bridges, no control over what happens on the other side to mitigate traffic, no control at all. So what we have tried to do, being put in an impossible position, is try to gain some control over what the future of those bridges is. If we give up the little bit of leverage that we have, which is to extend the opening of 170th, because that's really our leverage. Our position on 170th is not to keep it closed forever. Our position on 170th is Miami-Dade County didn't consider us as far as the design and construction of that bridge. So eventually, whether we win or lose 170th, the 170th is going to open. So we're going to end up with a bridge and 0 benefit from any of it. Now, this agreement that is before us today has several aspects that I want to discuss and put on the record, because I know it's very long, and some people have read it page for page, but I'm going to go over them. The first one, yes, 170th will open as soon as they're finished constructing it. The first provision we have in here is what the attorney alluded to, the no trucks. The language we put in the agreement is that 170th shall not be open to any heavy trucks, tractor trailers, semi-trucks, or hauling trucks. And then we go on to define what heavy trucks means. And based on the information from the manager and the attorney, it seems like we're going to put somewhere in the ballpark of 23,000 to 24,000 on that pound limitation. So that's the first provision that we get control over if we accept this settlement. The second point that we get if we accept this settlement is that the 154th Street Bridge stays closed for 10 years. And it cannot be open until a committee is brought forth, a committee of 9 members, where we have 4 votes, Miami-Dade County has 2 votes, Hialeah has 2 votes, and the 9th member is unanimously approved by the 8 other participants. If we're unable to reach that 9th person, the 9th person becomes a representative of the League of Cities, which is an independent body that represents towns and cities throughout Miami-Dade County. So that's the committee. And that committee has to determine, after having seen a traffic study that will be done from now to 10 years, that it is beneficial to both sides, Miami Lakes and Hialeah, to open 154th. Okay? So that is another level of control that we have. We have a 4-person vote on a 9-person board to make the determination as to whether or not 154th Street opens. Now, before that committee can even meet, there are requirements that the county and the city of Hialeah have to meet. The first of which, they have to complete 97th Avenue up to 186 and connect it to the I-75 on-ramp at 186. They can connect it through the park and ride. They can connect it directly to 186. But somehow, 97th or a perimeter road has to reach all the way up to 186. Now, these next 2 are items that were just added in this last round of negotiations. Within, I believe it's 2 years, the county has to add 2 left turn lanes on the northbound section of 87th Avenue onto 186. The reason for that is we've been discussing with our town planner, and we believe that to avoid the traffic coming south, we want them to have an incentive to go north. And the incentive to go north is 2 left turn lanes onto 186, which they do not have right now. The next item is the completion of 170th from I-75 all the way to the Turnpike. Now, the state of Florida has already started the on-ramp and off-ramp to the Turnpike at 170th. That project is fully funded, and it runs all the way through 102nd. So there's a piece of that road of 170th from 102nd to 97th that the county has to complete. And I have already been in discussions with the grant companies, and they're willing to grant whatever right-of-ways they need to grant in order to make sure that the county finishes that road. What will that do? It will give the residents on that side and some residents on this side, if they wish, to take 170th all the way and get onto the Turnpike through 170th. The last item, so those 3 things, the 97th to 186, the 87th 2 turn lanes, and the completion of 170th, all 3 of those have to be done before the committee can even meet. And that's very important, because what we have negotiated here is to have the county and the city of Hialeah provide some mitigation to the traffic on that side in order to even consider opening another bridge into our town. Okay? So 154th will remain closed until those 3 items are done and the committee meets and they make the determination pursuant to the agreement. Okay? There's only one caveat, and that is the committee will not meet. And the reason this was in there is because I believe it provides an incentive to Miami-Dade County. We have been trying to get on-ramps onto I-75, connectivity to I-75 for years. We were the only ones. City of Hialeah never helped us. Miami-Dade County never helped us. As an incentive to the county to do away with this committee, which we have 4 votes, if there are slip ramps connected to I-75 and 154th, then 154th can open without the committee. But they have to give us the connectivity that our residents want, which is access out of the community. Okay, and that was something that I believe was important. It gives the county an incentive, and it makes them an ally in a fight that is a heavy lift, because in order to get that connectivity, you have to get the federal government to approve, you have to get the state of Florida to approve, and you have to get Miami-Dade County to approve. The last item that we negotiated as part of the agreement was the actual improvements on 154th, where it's going to be a green trail and that 1 lane for SOS emergency vehicles. All of the improvements on 154th are paid completely by Miami-Dade County. And that was another item that we negotiated thanks to Councilwoman Ruano. She asked for that, and we put it into the agreement. Okay? So those things are why I believe that this is a good deal for what the alternative could be. Because the alternative is you end up with both bridges open at some point and 0 control over what happens in 5, 10, 20 years from now. We already ceded control when we didn't annex that area. I don't want to make that mistake again. And I know that the attorneys are doing their best. But when you're before a judge who already said, I don't believe you have a cause of action, okay? We're going back before that same judge for a ruling. And all we get to do is, Your Honor, look at our facts now. Will his mind change? Maybe. Do I believe so? Probably not. And we're going to end up with a bridge that's going to open anyway, and 0 say-so over what happens on the other side of I-75, and 0 say-so on what happens at 154th. I understand that this is not ideal, but this is the position that this council was put in. And I believe that that we have done a very good job in negotiating this agreement to give ourselves a semblance of control over what happens in the future of traffic in Northwest State. Okay? So that's why I'm going to be voting in favor of the MOU. with some changes, Mr. Attorney.
Got it. I'll go to Councilman Diegues, and if you want Councilwoman Ronald, Councilman Collazo, Councilman Fernandez, I know everybody's gonna want to bite at the apple.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I'll begin by also just alerting the attorney, and I told you about some of the additions that I wanted to add as we were walking in. So, there will be some additional changes from me as well. I think the Vice Mayor laid out pretty well the deal as far as what's good about it. That does not mean that it is a perfect deal, that it is a deal that I'm going to be smiling about or something that we're all going to enjoy. But given the options and where we find ourselves, it's likely going to be as good as it's going to get. I did have a question, though, because the attorney did indicate that the county has agreed to this version of the agreement. Is that the case? Because at the last
Nope.
executive session, okay.
No,
Yeah.
there are things in here that they have not agreed on, and they have let me know no uncertain terms, as some of you have heard. But I'm willing to bring it to them anyway. They have not agreed on the 97th Avenue, the 97th to Turnpike extension. I'm getting
Which, by the way, there was some clarification. It's not 97th to Turnpike. The state project for the Turnpike already goes to 102nd.
right, 97th
So
to
it's
102.
only 102nd to 97th.
Right,
So
right.
that's one of the cleanup changes that we have to make.
Right. That has not been agreed on. I believe, put in front of them, they will. The issue of the trucks has gotten me some feedback. I want the council to make your decision based on what you want to do, and we put them and put it in front of them. The 186 turn lanes on 87th Avenue was also not agreed upon, but I want to put it in front of them. Those are things that I believe need to be there. Otherwise, we may have to do what we have to do.
Thank you. No, I just wanted to clarify that because I think you had said that they had agreed to it at one point, and maybe that was that you misspoke, perhaps. But
maybe.
Yeah, I bring it up just to highlight the fact that even if something were to pass tonight, it still has to go in front of the city of Hialeah. It has to go in front of Miami-Dade County. And being that they have not agreed to some of these additions that we've made, then the reality is that might actually show you that this is not giving away the store as some have alleged. Additionally, I want to point out some improvements that Mr. Halperin pointed out that we should be including in the settlement, which were things that Councilman Collazo had asked for, and I think they were reasonable requests, but I'm going to explain why I think at the end of the day they were rejected. With respect to the Gratney Parkway, the construction of entrance ramps at 67th Avenue and then also on 87th Avenue that are in our transportation master plan, what the public should know is that the Miami-Dade Expressway Authority, which was in existence at that time, has since been abolished by the state of Florida and replaced with a substitute agency called the Greater Miami, or GMX, the Greater Miami Expressway Authority. There has been litigation between the state of Florida and the county as to the ability of that agency to operate, whether it was a lawful created entity, and that has held up those ramps from being built out. And it was in the 5-year work plan, it was being studied, but because of that litigation, it has been in a state of flux ever since. And even though the case may actually get resolved now in the county's favor to keep the Miami-Dade Expressway Authority intact, the reality is, I've been told, that that entity is going to continually be attacked, which means it's going to hurt their ability to finance those ramps. The Lieutenant Governor of Florida, Jeanette Nunez, was one of the prime sponsors in the House when that bill was going through to abolish the MDX authority. And she's obviously still going to be in office for a while. So that is the problem with requesting that in the agreement. The county's not going to agree to do something that they can't promise, right? They can't obligate themselves to agree to something that, is going to be indefinitely postponed, and then secondly, is technically a separate legal entity. So that's another problem there. With respect to the...
And hold on, to that point, I was told that's dead on arrival. We tried to get those, and that is dead on arrival. I was told by the county explicitly and by Hialeah explicitly. Don't send us something like that.
Well, but for those reasons.
Exactly for those
Yeah.
reasons.
So, again, turning to the underpasses at Northwest 146th Street and Northwest 160th Street. The problem there, as has been revealed to the public before, is that they, as part of the Palmetto expansion project under which this plan was going to take place, they have discovered gas lines in the area that nobody wants to pay for. The gas companies don't want to pay to move the lines. The state doesn't want to foot the entire cost. So that's another project that's been in limbo, for, again, through no fault of our own, because of these unforeseen circumstances. And to include that in the agreement, again, would be something that they absolutely would not agree to, and I can understand why, because, again, it's not even them that have control over it. That's FDOT, that's the state, who is not being asked to be a party to this agreement, who is, at the moment, not a party to the litigation, but, I guess we're going to have to add them if we proceed. But the point is that they have no control over that, and that would be why they wouldn't agree to that change. So I just wanted to point out those two things in particular, because to me, those would have been the ideal items to include as part of the agreement. But for those reasons, I can understand why they would be rejected and have been rejected. The comments you made, Mr. Halpern, with respect to 87th Avenue, as you heard the Vice Mayor, we're including that in here to expand that, that to 4 lanes or 4 lanes, to add additional turning lanes there. With respect to, so that I just want to address those things. Turning back to the MOU itself, Ms. Luce has asked about the direction of the slip ramps. It's actually here. I was very particular about that. If you look at the last whereas clause, it talks about an on-ramp. In the prior whereas clause, it talks about access onto I-75. It's one directional. Page 5, at the very bottom, that last whereas clause, onto Interstate I-75, flip the page over to page 6 at the very top there, whereas in the middle of that paragraph, it says for an on-ramp onto Interstate 75.
Which is being changed to plural. Which is being changed to plural.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
Which is being changed to plural for
Yeah,
on-ramps.
Correct, but directionally is what I wanted to.
Okay.
I took that to mean that you meant like whether they were getting onto the highway or off. Okay, yeah. So that's in there, and that was something that I specifically had written in there to be clear, because again, that, God willing, it happens, would be not detrimental, beneficial to us. And it's we all know the problem we have on Northwest 155th Street, why it's always clogged. It's a choke point. Everyone, whether they live in the town or whether they commute to the town from Broward or otherwise, are trying to access I-75 North, and they have to go through the Palmetto entrance there, or they're trying to get out of town to go south in the Palmetto, and they have to go there. This would, once built, would provide people, commuters, and residents another way out of the town onto the highway system, which is what our entire transportation plan is built about. That's why we have the Gratney ramps in our plan. And what the Vice Mayor negotiated here is turning them into a partner in that endeavor. We heard Commissioner Garcia talk about Mario Diaz-Balart being willing to work with us to get the federal funding to make the ramps happen, as well as the authority to make it happen. He has also spoken to the Lieutenant Governor, and she is on board with advocating as well for FDOT to allow ramp access, from their bridge. And again, the county has indicated that they will be also, willing to provide money to make it happen as well. I remember walking this issue with Councilman Collazo in 2016 as his campaign manager at that time on the west side, and he would always ask them what the residents felt about opening up the bridges. Initially, surprisingly, just about everybody was a yes, because they thought they were going to have access to I-75. When he fed them the other piece of information that was not the case, then that's when everyone said, no, let's keep it closed. But again, I think that's very telling about where the majority of the community feels with respect to opening up 154th Street, which is that they're actually fine with it as long as there's ramp access. I think 10 years, perhaps even more, since they have to finish the 97th Avenue improvement first, and again, potentially the committee would decide that it is not, that the opening of 154th does not materially benefit both sides. 10 plus years, I think, is enough time to make that ramp a reality. And I think what we have with Commissioner Garcia is a partner with deep context at the state and at the federal level that will utilize them for our benefit to make this a reality, to finally help us break the traffic gridlock. Because as I said, the other big items in our transportation master plan, from the underpasses at the Palmetto, the connection to the Gratney, those are going to be in purgatory for the foreseeable future. So what is not going to be in purgatory for the foreseeable future is this case. So, and again, right now the case, the last thing I want to clarify, as part of my remarks and add context to for the public's benefit, is that we are not litigating about the interlocal agreement as to 154th Street. We are litigating about the county's violation and Lennar's violation of our road transfer agreement when they started digging and excavating on our part of the road without our permission. That's what we're litigating about. Lennar, and I'm sure you saw in the oral argument, has stated, and apparently they have, submitted an application for a permit to get our permit. At some point, they're going to comply with our conditions. And at that juncture, I don't see how we hold up that permit. No, nor would I believe that is legal to do, which means that the basis of our suit would be
I'm sorry. No, we will hold up the permit because the road transfer agreement says we get the plan, design, and construct.
No, but what I'm saying is that we get to set the conditions, but as long as they're complying with them.
I'm not agreeing with that, Judge.
And that's fair, and then maybe I misunderstood you,
right.
So I apologize then.
Yeah.
But at least that's my read. But the reality is that, to me, though, the 170th case is not doing well in the long term. That's my opinion. It's not. I'm not getting into any of the strategies, so please don't hurt me. But when we get back, or eventually, when a new case is filed, again looking down the road as to 154th Street, we're still going to have a lot of the same issues, in my view, with respect to our position. I think it is better to strike now while the iron's hot, to go ahead and get some control of our destiny. As the former Mayor Pizzi stated, we gave that away in large part with the failure to annex that area west of I-75. And so this is the only way, really, for us to be in the driver's seat to whatever extent possible. And to me, whatever extent possible is better, because a future in which both those bridges are open in less than 2 years, that is going to be absolutely more detrimental for our quality of life than having a phased-in approach. And again, 10 years or plus, is, in my view, enough time for us to be able to get the ramp on I-75 and make it a reality. I'll turn it over to my colleagues.
Got it. Councilwoman Ronald.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you to all of the residents for your comments this evening. I want to thank the council members that have put countless hours into this MOU. I know that the mayor, the vice mayor have physically been in many meetings. Our legal team and Councilmember Dieguez, who is also a legal mind, have touched and poked and prodded this agreement to death. Right. I am not happy with it. There's many things in here that every time that I get a new version of it, there's still, I can show you my notes. There's still tons of things that I'm not happy with. 154th Street Bridge opening is everywhere that it is discussed as open to all vehicular traffic. I'm a big proponent of no trucks. I don't care about the weight limit. To me, no trucks is no trucks. Policing this item is a problem. I don't think that our police officers are going to stand there and look and stop the truck and read the tag and read the decal. To me, I always ask for no trucks, and this, myriad of trucks that's going to be allowable is just opening Pandora's box. You give them a finger, they take the whole hand. That's not something that I'm comfortable with. We've discussed it in private executive sessions. I know that UPS, FedEx, Amazon, there's a concern that someone might not get their delivery by 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and quite frankly, I don't care. That is not the purpose of opening these bridges. Opening these bridges is for public safety, for people to be able to access hospitals and emergency vehicles, and saving lives is what I've been told from the get-go is the importance of opening these bridges. FedEx and Amazon don't qualify as life-saving vehicles. So to me, anything with trucks on it is a deal breaker, and I just want, for those that may be looking to approve this MOU today, to please, as a favor to all of our residents, include no trucks in all of these paragraphs that talk about 154th Street. It doesn't have any mention of trucks. It says all vehicular traffic. There's a couple of components in here that says, that say, well, first of all, the interlocal agreement that, in my opinion, has a lot of weight. And I am one of those residents that purchased my home under the pretense that that bridge would never open. I live on a community on 154 Street with only one entrance and one exit, and I would have never purchased that property had I not been told year after year after year that there was an interlocal agreement with the city of Hialeah and that bridge would never open. So now if that bridge ever opens, whether it's today or 2 years from now or 10 years from now, I will need a helicopter to get out of my house because there isn't a traffic light, there isn't a queue to make a left-hand turn. I just will be stuck at home forever. So to me, that interlocal agreement does carry weight. It was part of a bigger argument. It was part of a bigger plan. It was a condition to homes being built on the west side of the highway. I cannot believe for 1 second that that interlocal agreement just is worthless. To me, I don't think that any judge would view it that way because it is the pretense under which many Miami Lakers have purchased their homes. And like Keith has said over and over and over again, class action lawsuit would be in order for all of the people that were lied to with that agreement, both by this municipality and the city of Hialeah. So I understand that Miami-Dade County can overturn these things. Miami-Dade County is a higher authority. I get all of that stuff. I'm an accountant. I'm not an attorney. But to me, that's just something that I don't understand. I understand that 170th is a different story, but I don't think that the conversation of both bridges being in the same MOU kind of bothers me because there are different cases and there's different agreements on either bridge. So this particular MOU, number 3, states that the interlocal agreement between the town and Hialeah will be null and void when we sign this. Why do we have to nullify something that has no value, something that is worthless, right? As Mirta said, if it's toilet paper, why do we have to nullify it? Just leave it alone. No, they're making a point to nullify it here because we are going to lose all control that we possibly have by entering into this agreement. My humble opinion, I'm not an attorney, I'm just an accountant. So moving on, I have notes with regards to truck classification. To me, no trucks is what I would like to see. There's still golf carts and electric golf carts on the agreement. That's not supposed to be there. Okay. So that, I would like to have that removed, please. Okay, so when the agreement discusses the committee that's going to be formed and the traffic study that's going to be conducted, it talks about whether or not the opening of the bridges will materially benefit both cities. I don't know what that means. I don't know what materially benefits means. There is no matrix to understand, if 500 cars come this way or 12 cars go that way. What is it? These are vague things that are in this agreement that I'm not comfortable with. Again, I have no trucks written all over this because to me, no trucks is something that is very, very important. Let's go through it. 6B, it talks about the opening of 154th Street Bridge, but it doesn't say upon the completion of the slip ramps. It talks about building slip ramps and opening 154th Street, but it doesn't specify that 154th Street cannot be opened until the slip ramps are completed. It's vague. Slip ramps could be promised to us, and I don't know if that would trigger the opening of 154th Street. We've been promised many things in the past, like the connections to the Gratley, like the underpasses on the Palmetto. These things are out of our control, and so I want to put something in there that attaches the opening of 154th Street to the completion or fully operational slip ramps, something to that extent. Okay, moving to item, I guess it's 6E. It says neither Miami Lakes nor Hialeah shall raise any objection. That should read any reasonable objection. We don't know what objections could possibly be in the works, but we cannot just close the door to having our mouths shut forever regarding all of these permits that may or may not move forward. So those are my 2 cents. When I make decisions up here, they're not always based on me taking a tally of whether I'm going to win or lose, me kind of gauging my options. For me, this is emotional. For me, this is my town. For me, these are my residents. This is my home. And so if I were fighting for my home, for my backyard, for my property, I wouldn't decide to give up. I would continue to fight, even if I lost in court. And I've said it over and over again, and I've said it to every resident that calls me. I cannot guarantee a win in court. I cannot guarantee that an interlocal agreement will prevail if 154th Street Bridge is taken to court at some point. I can't guarantee that. We can't guarantee that we're going to lose. We can't guarantee that we're going to win. We have to vote our conscience, and I have to be able to put my head on the pillow and know that I've done right by my community. And this agreement sucks, and we all know it. Nobody up here is happy with it. So I just want for the residents to know that whether we vote for it or don't vote for it, there's not one council member that sits on this dais that is happy with this agreement. On the contrary, everyone is voting because they think that we are either going to win or going to lose, and we're kind of weighing our options. But this is bad for Miami Lakes. There's nothing in here that is good. 170th Street opens tomorrow. We give up on our lawsuit. We give up on all the rights that we have to ever kind of open our mouths in the future. We can't argue about anything. We can't object on anything. We have to allow everything to happen to us based on what's on this piece of paper, and a lot of the things are vague. So I can't support it as it's written. I still think that we have a case on 154th Street. I fully understand that 170th will eventually open. There's nothing in here that mitigates it, to be quite honest. 97th Avenue, which I thought was a brilliant ask, is going to open when it opens. There's nothing in here that says that it's going to open right away, so 170th Street Bridge opens without mitigation for that traffic that's coming over the bridge. So to me, it's just not good enough. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Morano. Councilman Collazo.
Thank you. It's almost like Groundhog Day, because if you've had the opportunity to be in the executive sessions, it's kind of gone a lot like this. Kind of everybody expressing their opinion and everybody saying, well, this has been my line in the sand, or this issue's been important to me. And the term that Councilwoman Morano just closed with, that this agreement sucks, has kind of been the tone of every single executive session. I come into this council at a time where we're foreshadowing this. We're foreshadowing it with the fact that we have a lot of development going on around us, and a lot of it is without our purview, right, for input. We hire a firm of engineers that has a lot of knowledge on what to do with roadway designs, and they do some modeling for us. And they say, if one of these bridges opens, or if both of these bridges opens, it's gonna suck, right? It's a 2,500 page report, but basically that's what it says. Any of these bridges open, it's not good. The only way you can maybe accept this is if you start doing A, B, C, D, and they give us a pretty significant laundry list of things that we need to do. I think Councilman Dieguez may have already put out some of those issues that were important to me. Again, executive sessions, right? You go in and say, well, these bridges are not going to open unless we do A. What's A? Open up underpasses, right? And I remember campaigning with Mayor Sid. I remember actually voting on a lot of future development that's going to come into this community, right? Based on the fact that these underpasses are going to give us a little bit of breathing room, right? To allow capacity, to allow us to take on what we're building. Well, these underpasses are never going to materialize, right? It talks about a Texas U-turn. I remember out there being with Councilman Nelson Rodriguez, Vice Mayor Nelson Rodriguez at the time. Texas U-turn. We're going to get Texas U-turns. And you know what? That's also going to help. That's also going to help alleviate, offset a lot of this traffic. And this is really going to be, let's get the Texas U-turns on there. No, nobody can agree to the Texas U-turns. GMX, right? We've heard what Councilman Dieguez has said, right? GMX is not an option, right? I've always said where there's a will, there's a way, right? We're going to find slip ramps. We're going to find the federal government to sing Kumbaya with us. We're going to find a way to get this done. But GMX is not an option. Why was Northwest 87th Avenue connectivity and Northwest 67th Avenue connectivity important for me, at least? Because it gives us relief, right? There's a lot of things here that give the other side relief. But we know, because of what Lochner has studied in the 2,500 plus pages of data sets, we know what that's going to mean to Miami Lakes. So to me, that was important, and I understand that that's an impossible lift. There's about another 9 projects that were part of that Lochner report that none of them can make it to the final cut. Because the reality is that this deal has never been our deal. It's been what we can agree to, that other parties can also agree to, right? And that's what makes this, right, to coin the term, what makes this deal suck for me is that we've gotten some concessions. We've gotten what we can nibble from, right? But nothing can help us with the brunt that's coming. So if you go back to the tape, you go back to all the executive sessions, and you will hear this process play out. You will hear, these issues that become of golf carts or of trucks, and there's just not enough here to get me to turn. I understand the monumental consequences. I understand and I sympathize with the people on the west side. And I also know that 170th is not as strong as 154. But I believe we have a case in 154. And I believe that we need to hold out on 154 until we can get more concessions where there's a will to carry out. And I do believe whether it's GMX or whether it's any other agency, they can at least be referenced into this deal to give Miami Lakers relief, because that's what we're going to need. I'm not saying this for color. I'm not saying it for politics. It is what the Lochner study says. And I know a lot of people discredit traffic studies. I know maybe some people here think, well, what are you going to do, ask for another traffic study? This traffic study was vetted by our staff. The validity of the traffic study was basically for this very purpose, to take into account all of the development in the area and what we needed to do. And there's just not enough here to get me to turn to really embrace this deal. Those are my comments. I think my colleagues did a lot to capture some of my sentiment. And Vice Mayor said, we got to do better. Here's some of the tape. When we were talking about enforcing the trucks, there was some trepidation of, well, are the trucks going to be enforced? And I remember what you said we got to do better. And I think my position on this deal is we got to do better.
Thank you, Councilman Collazo. Councilman Fernandez.
So I think the appropriate opening is, this deal sucks. I think that's the one thing that all of us can agree on unanimously. The deal sucks. But the decision that we're faced with is, what does Miami Lakes look like with this deal or without this deal, right? That is the decision before us today is Miami Lakes better off with this deal or without this deal? And we've heard a lot of things here tonight. We've heard about courage and fighting, and I think we're all a very prideful community. Nobody likes to lose. Nobody likes to have bend their will and admit that we're not getting everything we want. We're not getting half of the things that we want. But we are getting something. And without this deal, we get nothing. We get to hang our hat on a deal, on an agreement that has issues. Some of those issues we don't necessarily want to get into in an open forum because they may yet be litigated, but there are issues. And so the decision for me is a logical one, and I've slept and prayed on this, and is Miami Lakes in a better position with this deal or without this deal? And I think my opinion is that we are in a better place with this deal. There are, and I don't want to repeat what's already been said, but there are things that happen that will bring relief. So one of the things, for example, that doesn't get enough talk about is, once 170th is extended to the Turnpike, a lot of the traffic that you see in the morning on 87th Avenue going southbound, right? Anybody that lives south of 154 experiences a lot of that traffic. A lot of that traffic is people not only in Miami Lakes, but north of Miami Lakes, seeking a route to the Turnpike, right? Having connectivity on 170th will eliminate a lot of those trips through the lakes going to the Turnpike, and will give us another direct shot to the Turnpike. A lot of that traffic you see just, go south and eventually finds the Turnpike. That's one of the things that becomes easier because we're asking and pushing for connectivity on 170th to the Turnpike. We're asking and encouraging connectivity on 97th to 186. We're getting some of those things, and we're getting to dictate what the outcome and the timing is on 154. I guarantee you, and now I'm gonna go beyond just us. I guarantee you, when Hialeah votes on this agreement, they're gonna say this agreement sucks. And I guarantee you, when the county votes on this agreement, they're gonna say it really sucks, because the county's position has been pretty consistent thus far, that they, we're the town of Miami Lakes and they're a big old Miami-Dade County, and they just want to hammer us into submission, right? But at the end of the day, I think, and obviously, in time we'll know, what the right decision was. It's very easy, for any of us politically to legislate the what ifs, right? To say, well, I didn't agree with doing that at the time, and if we would have done X, Y, or Z, or if we would have, we would have done this, or we would have done that, or, if my grandmother had 2 wheels, she'd be a bicycle. And that's just the nature of the game, and that's the nature of politics. I hope that that's not, what transpires and happens in the future, but we shall see. But yeah, I just wanted to make my position on the clear on the record. I will be voting in favor of adopting the MOU.
Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councilman Fernandez. Mr. Attorney, I haven't had a chance to speak yet. You'll have your chance to rebuttal.
Okay.
Talk about generational problems, right? When this all started even being discussed, I was a senior in high school. So talk about inheriting, right, mistakes of the past. So what I wanted to do was go back and understand what happened. Why are we here today? So I called some of the folks who were serving back then. I've spoken to Mayor Slane. You all saw Robert Metter here. You saw former Mayor Pizzi here. Spoken to Nancy Simon. But I spoke to some of the real players that made this stuff happen. Spoke to former Commissioner Natasha Cejas about this whole thing. Even had Raul Martinez, who unfortunately beat our town in terms of annexing that area. And they all made it very clear to me. There was never, ever, ever, ever a deal on 170th. Everybody knew that at some point 170th was going to open with no preconditions. Just to be clear, we're at least putting no trucks. We're doing certain things. But even back then, everybody told me that there were Commissioner Cejas pulled the 170th bridge from the long-range transportation plan. As fast as she pulled it out in 2017, it got placed back in, because that's not something you could take in and out. But they all made it very, very clear to me there was never a deal on 170th. Never. Everybody understood that 170th was going to open back then at some point. There was a deal on 154. Everybody's told me that. It's also been clear that the county, for some reason, although we're able to do it today, right, they weren't able to get the county to sign off on the deal back then on 154. I would be more than happy to litigate that issue, but we'll get there in a second. But I just wanted to put it in the proper posture that those are generational mistakes, because I'm the generation inheriting the mistake of not annexing the areas west of I-75, and I'm having to deal with that mistake today as mayor, although I was in high school when these conversations started happening. So I wanted to put that in the proper posture. Fast forward 2015. The first proposal to settle this issue comes forward. Former Councilman Cesar Mestre says, hey, let's open 170th and let's keep 154 closed. Obviously, at the time, everybody said, no way. I think it got pulled from the agenda. He got a lot of pushback from the public. I don't even think it was discussed. Non-starter. Fast forward 2017, 2018. Then Councilman Nelson Rodriguez said, hey, let's think outside the box. If you have a bridge that's just sitting there, at some point, somebody's going to try to open it. So why don't we maybe turn it into a park, same way the county's doing Ludlam Trail, the Underline. New York did the High Line. Chicago did 606. Atlanta did the Beltway. We could do a nice amenity. And Nelson and I actually went with FDOT to Ocala and visited a bridge over I-75 in Ocala that got converted to a park. So it exists in Florida. So Nelson and I went. FDOT at the time gave us a letter, which is actually framed in my office, approving it, saying, hey, we're good. Let's do the park. Hialeah passed a resolution to that effect, agreeing with us to do the park. What ended up happening again was there could never be an agreement to open 170th and turn 154 into a park. Fast forward, FDOT pulled that approval. They no longer, at the time, were in agreement with us doing it in the park. The county was going to fight back, even though Hialeah was going to tell them at the time to do that. So from 2019 to 2021, Mayor Carlos Hernandez, former Mayor Carlos Hernandez of the city of Hialeah, constantly told me every time I went to go meet with him, he goes, Manny, there's no negotiation. I'm going to push as hard as I can to have both bridges open. I don't care what you guys have to say. Obviously, we beat him. Time, he left office. Time passed. We lost in court, obviously, in the meantime, so they felt very emboldened. We were in a bad position. Even before the ruling on the third DCA, when we had zero leverage, I reached out to Mayor Bovo. I go, Mayor Bovo, although I know you guys, and he even told me, he goes, my attorneys, everybody's telling me not to negotiate with you guys. And he told me, he goes, look, I believe, and I know there's people in here that don't like him, but he even told me, he goes, I believe everybody should come to the table and understand why we want it open, why you guys want it closed, and try to come to an agreement. At that point, I remember our town attorney trying to come up with a semblance of a deal, which was 20 times, 100,000 times even worse than this one, because we had no leverage. Fortunately, we won in the third DCA. We really didn't win. They just remanded it in reverse, saying that we have to sue state agency. And then the negotiations continued to where they're at today. It's not ideal. From me as a policymaker, I've fortunately been in a policymaking position as an aide, even as on the council for 17 years now. I understand how it works pretty good, pretty well. And as an elected official, you balance it out, right? You weigh the politics and you weigh the policy. The politics on this one completely outweigh the policy, right? From a political perspective, what would benefit me the most would be to keep litigating this, because I would continue being on TV, I would continue being on the radio every day, continue getting earned media all over the place and being the hero fighting the thing. From the policy perspective, I feel that I would be lying to our residents saying, hey, let's continue litigating, knowing what our attorneys, I remember Raul Lopez has even said in the past that it could set a precedent, losing could set a precedent on 154, which is something I'm not willing to do, and it goes back to those generational mistakes and handing them over. I don't want a kid who's in high school today looking back and saying, hey, why didn't you guys make a deal? Why did 170th open and now there's 18-wheelers coming over? Why didn't you guys make that deal back then? It would have been great, but it's happened before here in the town. There is an issue. One of the issues I have in here that I'm going to make a motion to change is in regards to Jakey's Park. I know in all the negotiations I was part of, that was supposed to be staying there in perpetuity. I went out there. The argument that the county gave in regards to the width of the road is not true. Our own master plan calls for 10-foot lanes. There's no need to continue to expand upon that. So I would like to see some language to keep Jakey's Park in perpetuity there. And if it were ever to be moved, it would have to be with the consent and the approval of the Duque family. not just saying, hey, I want to see language to that effect in there. So I'm gonna make a motion real quick on that one to strike the line where it says that Jakey's Park may be moved, and I wanna make a motion to add in there that Jakey's Park will stay there in perpetuity unless agreed upon, unless coordinated and consented by the Duque family.
Second.
Discussion on this line, seeing none, all those in
Mayor,
favor?
I have a.
Whoa, wait, I have discussion.
Yeah, and I was
For what
gonna,
it's
I was
worth.
gonna ask, because this issue was heavily talked about in our last executive session. And I know that our attorneys tried to put this deal in a posture where we were all going to, I don't think anybody disagrees with what your position. But it was made very clear to us if that's going in here, that might be a poison pill.
That was never gonna be a
Then I
poison
take
pill.
it back. I take it back. I'll let the attorneys answer.
I thought, Jeff, you were there. I thought Jimmy Morales made it clear that they needed to have the option to move it.
I made it clear to Jimmy Morales 1,000 times, made it clear to Mayor Bobo. They both agreed, and all the other iterations of this, it was different. I understand maybe they took the chance that I wasn't there, and that's why they talked to you all like that, to that effect. But I think this language would be a lot more appropriate going forward.
All right, well, I need.
I think we need to clarify what exactly that language is.
Exactly.
Because based on the conversations that I had with them, they did not believe that they would have the space to leave it in its current position and keep the same feel that the park has now. If anyone who's been to the park, the statue for Jakey is in the middle, and there's some benches around. That what they had told us at the meeting after discussing with their engineers was that they would have to take at least the northern portion of that little park to create that SOS lane. So in doing that, for me, it changed the feel and the dynamic of the park. It's no longer a park, it's a statue with benches on the south and a street on the right, on the north. So the alternative that was proposed, and which is what I had proposed to them after discussing with Orlando and Karen, was there's a portion on 153rd Terrace on the west side of, I guess that's 89th Avenue, where there's an area that currently belongs to FDOT and will be transferred to Miami-Dade County. And the discussion at the meeting was, we can move Jakey's statue and the entire park concept, meaning and leaving it with the benches around the statue, because that's what gives it the feel of it being a park and a memoriam for Jakey, is that we can do that in that area on 153rd Terrace, and it actually turns more into a neighborhood park as opposed to a statue on a major roadway. What I did not, and I don't want to see happen, is we say you have to leave it there in perpetuity. They do this SOS lane, and it changes the feel of that park. And then in the future, if we get the on-ramps, we have to scramble as to whether or not we move it or don't move it. So I always thought that the alternative for that 153rd Terrace park was a good alternative to having it where it is now. I spoke to Orlando and Karen about it. They had one concern, was that his back faced the sunset. I didn't think that would be an issue when Miami-Dade County moves it. So that was the reason why it was drafted this way. That area on 153rd Terrace is intended to be the forever home of this statue. and we never have to move it again, because if you leave it in the current position, whether it's changed by the dynamic of the SOS lane, or eventually in the future 154th opens, or eventually in the future there's on-ramps or slip ramps onto 154th, we're going to have to move it again, or move it at some point. So I took the opportunity to get a piece of land that didn't belong to us, transferred to us, have Miami-Dade County pay for moving the statue and moving the park to this area, which turns it into a pocket park like we have all over town. So that was my thought process on this. And so I understand, as long as we have the option to move it, if if the design doesn't look right, because I have a feeling.
With their consent. And that's what I want to make sure, the words.
They're not going to agree to giving consent to a family.
Two individuals.
Who's his family?
They're
not going to agree to that.
Jimmy, in the meeting said he spoke to Orlando and Karen. He obviously knows they're wonderful people, like all of us know. But he said he's going to try. He was actually saying, I'm going to try everything within my power to keep it there. But when we start talking about what is that going to look like, I felt that it was not going to be as nice of an amenity as it is right now. What they're going to do with that SOS lane is they're going to take the northern half of that park. There's 2 benches on
There's other alternatives. I mean, I've stood out there myself. I went out there this week again. There are 1,000 other alternatives. There's extra land on the northern, not on the west, on the northern side of that road.
That belongs to the association.
And we can work with them.
Look, I have no problem putting the language in there, but I believe that the end spot for that statue and that memorial and that park is going to be that FDOT land. Eventually, we're going to have to move it. That's just the reality, because if this agreement passes by us and Hialeah and Miami-Dade County is going to try to put on-ramps on 154th. And if that happens, I don't want, and I don't think Orlando and Karen would want, their son's statue in the middle of a very busy road. That's not the intent of that park. It was supposed to be a park where anyone, his parents or any residents, can go sit down, reflect in a park, in a setting that's relaxing and not, surrounded by traffic. So if you're gonna put something in there, I agree with the attorney. I don't think they're gonna do something that says that it's up to Karen and Orlando's consent. I do think they'll agree that if we decide to leave it there, that we can leave it there.
I do want some language at least to that effect.
I think that, Mr. Attorney, I think that we can do something in here where if we decide that after the design of the SOS lane, it looks okay, and we decide to leave it there, that we can leave it there, and they're not going to make us move it. But this alternative was actually a concession by them to give us land that doesn't belong to us. So,
yeah, they are adamant that engineering-wise, as this moves on, they're not going to be able to do it. They were just adamant about it.
Guys, Councilman, Vice Mayor,
just tell
what
me what to
language
write.
would you recommend?
Let me take a look at it real quick. Hold on.
If you want, we can revisit other points, and I'll take a chance at drafting it while you guys move on to some other points.
Well, if you go to the Vice Mayor, and I'll just continue some of my.
Well, before we move on, Mayor, and just for the Vice Mayor to consider, and this again has nothing to do with the statute. I understand what you guys are trying to do, but my understanding is anything that we try to put near a roadway, the county has never really been open to, including our entrance features, right? So the county has never really authorized our entrance features to go in the middle of roadways.
Did they authorize the crosswalk that we just put in?
I just want you to contemplate that, so as you draft the language, there's that understanding that I think that's been the Achilles heel, so to speak, of that statute being close to a roadway. And they've always cited it being a safety hazard. If a car has to veer, somebody can collide. This is a heavy object. It's a bronze statue. And there's always that's always been the issue. And that's my understanding of why the county has always been opposed to that.
I can I jump in? Yeah.
Thanks.
So I think the compromise, if we can get there, is leaving the choice, leaving the choice to move it up to us. If we realize it doesn't work, then we can move it at that time. For the time being, if it's just gonna be the SOS lane, then it's not full traffic, it's not more traffic than we see now, other than, the few and far between fire and police traffic. So I'm comfortable with what Vice Mayor Rodriguez suggested, just leaving the door open. And I think bringing in two private parties as a decision maker in the agreement makes the agreement a little bit more cloudy. So if we can leave it up to us,
I would rather leave it to us.
Yeah.
And obviously we know we're gonna take into account the family.
Right. So I'm just taking a quick stab on line 3 where it says the county shall transfer the monument in memory. I would say the county shall, at Miami Lakes' election, transfer the monument in memory of Jakey Duque from its current location.
So I'll withdraw my motion. I know there was a second, if it's okay, and just, I'll make a motion to the effect of what the language that Vice Mayor made.
Second.
Discussion on that language still, discussion on that language, seeing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes. Still on, a couple other thoughts that I wanted to share. I would, and I agree, I think Stephen made the point. I would love to see on an issue like this a unanimous vote. We're obviously not gonna get there. There might be an alternative, right? But I don't think anybody would even agree to that unanimously, right? You would have to, in theory, you would have to give up our court case on 170th and make a deal on 170th and keep the interlocal on 154. But even that, I don't think we'll get unanimous consent on or a perspective on that. Which either way, I would be open to it. But I think the truck issue is really, really important. The tough one there was deciphering between the 18-wheelers, the haulers, the really big construction trucks, and your Amazon, delivery trucks. And I think that was a hard one. I respect Councilman Morano's position on that, but it is definitely a difficult one to make. So on my motion, I know that one just passed. I know you guys have other motions. I'll just go to the other motions you all have, and I'll leave some further comments till later on.
All right, so can I tell you what I did as far as the trucks? Now that we're on it? Okay.
You're talking about as one on 154th reference.
No, I was talking about 170th.
Okay.
What I was going to add at the end of 5, the town shall be entitled to, the town shall be enacted to enact legislation necessary to enforce the failure to comply with the gross vehicle weight rating.
Okay.
In other words, we need to, if we're going to start ticketing people for this,
We need
I
the
think we
ability
need to
to.
do ordinances and things like that.
Oh, I had a question though.
believe-
Why did we go with weight as opposed to axles, for example?
I don't know. That's why it was all left blank, because it was a discussion item, and whatever we do, in other words, I don't know, those dump trucks, how many axles do they have? 2 or 3, I guess? Right, that's what I thought, but I don't.
Sometimes they have a third one in the back where they'll have 2 in the back and 1 in the front.
Right, so that,
But a smaller dump truck can have 2 axles.
right. Look,
And
I
it
left
will
it
weigh
blank
more than
because I left it
23,000.
blank because it's a discussion item. I really didn't know what to put there.
I think with the rating of the 23,000, but again, manager, it's gross vehicle weight rating.
Correct.
That's what we need to
actually
add in.
Tell them why.
The classification that Carlos, the classification image that Carlos had sent to us a few days ago, the classes are based on gross vehicle weight rating, not gross vehicle weight.
And we're going with 23,000?
All right, so I'm gonna make a motion.
23,000 cuts a class in half.
Right, so
So
the answer may be class 5, which is up to 19,500. So we can
Okay.
maybe put it at 2,000, because on the signage, it may be easier, I'm sorry, 20,000. The signage may be easier to say 2 tons. Because I know that there's already some signage that Carlos was showing me that indicates a picture of a truck, and we can put the picture, a picture of one of those long step trucks, like a UPS or a FedEx truck, and then put 2 ton. And then that'll cover it, and that'll be from that point down, nothing bigger than that.
No, 2 tons is 4,000 pounds, no?
A
It's
ton is
gotta be no
2,000
10
pounds.
tons. No truck, so if you're doing 20,000 pounds, it's gotta be 10 tons, no?
That's what I said, right? Did I mess up?
Yeah. Said
10 tons.
10, okay.
10 tons.
He's saying 20.
Right, so stop it here.
Right,
But
saying
then
20.
then the UPS truck
What's-
can't come over because it's 23.
It may not.
Right.
Gross.
So, Mr. Manager, your intention is no UPS trucks, correct?
Yes, no, I believe, I'm just trying to follow whatever
Vehicle
the will of this
gross?
council. I believe the council is looking for allowing UPS, Amazon, and FedEx.
Then we gotta raise it to 23,000
Or
pounds.
24.
Yeah,
or
you can go
24.
24 and 12 tons, and then you're covered.
So I'm gonna chime in because this has been something we've kind of discussed a lot in the executive session, and I think it's something we can kind of talk about so that you see. So, the definition of what are trucks, right, is kind of vague and ambiguous, and I think we need to tighten it up to something like this for the benefit of one, being able to enforce it, and for number two, for the benefit of it being something that really accomplishes what we want, right? Which is no dump trucks spewing, gravel and things like that on our streets. None of the big semi trucks hauling. There's a lot of warehouses on that side of town. The big trucks, the big trucks that take a lot of space. I think this kind of finds a happy medium, because then you start getting down to UPS trucks and Amazon trucks and your plumber that comes to your house and your roofer and all of these people, and now we have them, driving around in circles. And I don't think those trucks necessarily pose the same nuisance that the heavy trucks do. So I think this kind of finds a heavy medium, a convenient medium. What just out of curiosity, how does the weight limit, or how would the weight limit affect school buses?
I believe the school buses, at least the standard school bus, sometimes they have the little, the shorter ones, but the standard school bus, I think, is a higher class than these types of trucks.
Okay, so they would be prohibited.
Correct.
Say vehicles, well, it depends on what the sign's gonna say. If we say no trucks, a bus is not a truck.
I believe that they may be classified as trucks, but I'll double
Yes,
check.
they are, per
They are?
this chart, they are, and also mass transit buses, like the Miami-Dade buses, are also above that weight, which is why I said no trucks. They're above, so no school buses would be able, the big school buses wouldn't be able to come over, and mass transit buses, like Miami-Dade County, big metro buses would not be able to come over either if we go with that weight.
Which I think that just opens a whole other vector of issues with us in the county, because I'm not sure to what extent we can ban public transit
Look, we've had the discussion. It's up to you. I'll put whatever you want in the agreement. I don't know that it'll pass, but I'll
Guys,
put
get
whatever
some-
you
Can we
want.
just put, all right,
Some
I'm gonna make a
on the table,
motion.
please.
I'm gonna make a motion to amend section 5, the second to last sentence where it says, heavy truck is hereby defined as any truck having a gross vehicle rating,
Vehicle weight rating.
gross vehicle weight rating, GVWR, over, no,
Over. It's over.
over 24,000.
Okay.
Would you guys be open to adding language specifically excluding school buses, public transit buses, and any other government-owned vehicles?
It
Not-
excludes city buses. They weigh more than that.
Now your
Right. I'm
your
saying a
signage
lot.
gets busy.
Yeah.
Your signage gets really busy.
No, no,
think it's-
that's not a
Well, I
put
need
it
a
on the
second on
sign
mine.
thing.
We
That's
can,
a
we can create like a new SOP for the truck specifically, like internally.
I mean, Raul says we have to pass an ordinance anyway, right? So
The ticket, I believe you do. I haven't looked into it, but I think.
I need a
Issue
second on
tickets.
my motion.
second.
Right.
Yeah. So I mean, maybe that's something where it just behooves us to exclude
Well, look,
those things that are in
I'm
the public
looking at,
interest.
And again, and this is something we discussed, and this is where my "we need to be better" comment came in at the executive sessions. We don't want the trucks, so we need to enforce the no trucks. And if we're gonna say no trucks, Hialeah may or may not enforce it on their side, but we need to. And if that means we have to put a police officer there in the area for a specific time until the trucks get the hint that they're not gonna just pass over without getting ticketed, then that so be it. But we have to be better at enforcing it. And if that's what we want, no trucks, then we have to enforce it. Just like you enforce speeding.
I'm in a motion to reopen public comments.
No, we can't do that.
There's a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Name.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Aye.
Also, there's some opposed, you were opposed?
I'm in favor. Go ahead.
Got it. So it passed with 4 in favor. Josh, you voted?
I voted yes.
Got it. Yep.
Okay, I'm sorry. Claudia Luces, 8220 Menteith Terrace. I just have a question because, okay, obviously we're going to have to absorb the cost for enforcement because we want no trucks, you know, because that's what Hialeah is going to send us over because that's what they need, access to the Palmetto. So that means, do I have to then hire an extra officer? Or are you going to pull one off the streets and then just issue tickets on the bridge? Because now we're declining our services. Because that means they're not going to be, you know, roaming our area. So can someone clarify that for me, please?
There will not be additional expense, additional officers. We
There will
always,
be less officers patrolling the streets.
but we have it all the
if they're
time
gonna
with
ticket.
dedicated patrols in certain areas targeted for a limited amount of time, and we do that all the time with little
Right.
Guys,
hot
But
we
we're
spots.
can't
obviously
have it
having
both
to
ways.
make-
We can't say we want no trucks, but then we don't want to enforce it.
No,
If we want no
I
trucks, then
get
we
your
need to
point, but
enforce
this
it.
is just to the point of how we are being affected and we are having to absorb this cost. We are having to absorb this traffic. We are having to absorb the wear and tear on our roads.
'Cause
All I hear is we. This is us. You know, again, to the point, then what's the point of having a town at this point in time? If I'm going to be just, you know, kind of, you know, footing the bill for Hialeah so that I can give them access and their trucks access and their commercial businesses access. So now I'm going to have to take a cop because the cop wasn't there to begin with. So let's talk facts. The cop wasn't there. We don't have someone sitting there now, right? So we're going to have to move someone from what their regular route is, their routine, their patrolling, over to that area. And then gross tonnage weight. How is that checked? Just so that I understand, because I don't know how that, I mean, are we going to have somebody there with a camera, or is there a scanner? How do we know what the gross tonnage weight is? And when you pull someone over, what are you going to do? Where are you going to pull them over? There's not a lot of space there. These are just things to think of. I'm sorry that I'm bringing this to you, but it's questions. I know you guys are doing a good job, so I will say that, and thank you, by the way, for the meeting. It was good. I'm not going to say it wasn't. But these are questions that we, as taxpayers, have to know the answers to. My taxes are either going to increase or my level of service is going to decrease. It's very simple. So I'll leave that, so maybe you can address that. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor.
I got an idea on some good rulemaking, but I'll share real quick. Of course, I know you've been chomping on
Yes,
but
come on down.
specifically on trucks, because I know you've been chomping on the bit on everything else, but on trucks, what you got for us?
Keith Halpern, 15921 Dornock Round, Miami Lakes, let's speak official. Councilman Fernandez, let the city of Hialeah and let the county commissioners fight their fight. We're here to fight our fight. So if they're worried about school buses or city buses, let them come back to us. You know, we already agree that this is a terrible agreement. There's no reason for us to negotiate against ourselves at this juncture. Thank you.
Thank you, Keith. On public comments is still open on. On trucks.
I'm talking trucks. John Roger,
Okay,
15115
buses too,
Northwest
buses too.
89th Court. Guys, I got a great solution for you. Very easy. No trucks except school buses. That is it. It helps the community. It helps the folks that are going to school, because now there are some people that are going to school on our side and we're going to school on their side. Because not just the autism school, there's also the public schools that are starting to accept people because they're running out of room. So school buses accepted, no other trucks. That kind of lets it be a community thing. Thank you.
Anybody else on public comments on trucks? And a school bus just got added as well.
Bonnie Sintra on Lewis Road. No, but you're going to allow fire engines go over, so that's a big, heavy vehicle. But I'm just interested in the structural integrity of those bridges. Nobody has talked about that. And I know the 154th one was already deemed only 40-some% sound. So, I mean, I don't know, that's a whole big issue that we should be thinking about and looking into with these negotiations. And the road improvements that it says could be done on 154th Street, I want to know specifically that that does not include anything from 87th Avenue East, because suppose they decide that they should put in more lanes, and then they would cut down all the canopies there, and it would be devastating. So look into those. Thank you.
Thank you, Bonnie. And I know we have somebody online. Carolina, I see your hand up. I know you want to talk about trucks, so welcome.
Hi, thank you for the opportunity to give my comments. Basically reinforcing what the gentleman in the yellow shirt said. I think that everybody should benefit of the same opportunities other cities have, where school buses can go around. My son just he got accepted in the Matter Lakes Academy, and my daughter will be going to PSN soon. Actually in August, so I would like that benefit of having transportation for them, school buses, and I'm sure like he has as children in the school on this side, he will benefit from it too. So I just wanted to reinforce that.
Thank you, Carolina. Anyone else wanting to speak on on the bus truck issue? Yeah. If any other issue comes up, we'll take it. Oh, yeah, come up. Yeah, it's germane. Anything having to do with trucks and buses and school transportation.
Carrie Chacon, 14015. I have to say all that again? Lake Lorco, okay. So we keep talking about enforcement, the trucks, the buses, whatever. I am for no trucks at all, either cut it straight. We're talking about all these enforcements. How are we going to enforce this when the town is not enforcing any code enforcement, the town is not enforcing any of our laws, they're not enforcing anything that's happening in the town? Oh, I've tried to talk to him before, and he won't talk to me because I won't give him my name. And I never heard of that before in the Sunshine Law. So let's not even get there. But that's what I'm saying. People keep saying, oh, let's do this and with all these restrictions. But the town's not enforcing anything now. So all of a sudden we're going to start enforcing the 154th and 170th? It would be great if we start doing some enforcement. Thank you.
Thank you. Real quick, let me close off public comments on this issue. Anybody else? Trucks, buses, transportation? No? Public comments is closed for that portion. Yes, Councilman Fernandez, and I have an idea real quick that I think can help.
All right, I just wanna quickly clear up two things. I don't, but with all due respect, I don't think it's a matter of us negotiating against ourselves. I think it's a matter of trying to improve something in the agreement that we see is a problem for the public good. So that's my position. Secondly, I think it's real interesting and telling how we're having this conversation about these fine points and details in this agreement, when the alternative and the majority of the public wants no agreement at all, right? So let's transport ourselves into the alternate Miami Lakes, where we have no agreement. We have a ton of trucks. Trucks with no concession, no restriction. Big trucks, little trucks, noisy trucks, trucks with gravel, all the trucks in the world. Because if we don't have an agreement, there is nothing, zero, to stop anybody from the other side driving monster trucks and any other kind of truck over that bridge, right? So while we're debating this as a fine issue, let's just take a snapshot of what is that alternate, in that alternate universe where we all vote against this agreement and we have no agreement, what does that look like? Well, it looks like 170th with all the trucks in the world. It looks like if we decide on our municipal part of 170th to attempt to restrict the movement of trucks, guess what? If we want to enforce it, we still have to pay for an officer. If it's our prerogative that there be no trucks on 170th, we have to pay for it. That's just, it's not, there's no other way. It's like everything else that we talk about. If we want nice sidewalks, if we anything that we do as a body, none of it is divine intervention. It's all paid for with taxpayer dollars, and I think it's important to recognize that. So yeah, if it's us imposing that to reduce the impact of those trucks on our quality of life, we don't want there to be trucks, then we have the responsibility of enforcing it. And if that means, reassigning an officer from a different location. By the way, and speaking on the topic of enforcement and what's been said, there's signs all over town that tell you not to do other things too. There isn't a police officer on every single corner, nor do I ever want there to be, right? So it's not a question of, in the society that we live in, we know and understand that not every traffic law gets enforced, and we don't want that level of police in our in our community, right? We don't want officers having to stand at every street corner to enforce, no right turns and people taking yellow, so just to put that out into the universe.
All right, Mr. Mayor.
Real quick, and I go to the attorney. Madam Clerk, can you repeat the motion that was on the table? And I know there was a second to it, just so we can start.
Yes, the motion is from Vice Mayor Rodriguez. It was seconded by Council Member Fernandez. Motion to amend Section 5, and then he read defining what heavy trucks are, and he stated gross vehicle weight rating over 24,000 pounds.
Yeah.
Okay, Mr. Attorney, are you going to be speaking to that effect so we can
Yes.
start taking some votes
Okay.
here?
Guys, this is not a negotiation. Remember what the strategy is here. The strategy was put something in front of them. They either pass it or we litigate. It's that simple. This isn't about negotiating against ourselves or anything like that. This
I agree
is
with the attorney.
pass something that will pass or litigate. It's that simple. I'm not litigating against ourselves. We have been negotiating for 2.5 years. All of these points have been discussed and everything else. This point is something that we ourselves hadn't come to a consensus, so that's why I've left it so open.
Okay, there's a motion and a second on the table. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Oh, I'm sorry. One last thing. I know I'm interrupting.
It's
about this. It's about this. Remember, on the other side, what's there? There's that huge fountain thing and everything else. Right now, I don't think any of those trucks can get through there. And that's been their point. Now, that can change on a moment's notice. It is it? Not when I was there. Okay.
170th will be aligned to be a straight road
I
and
see.
not go through that roundabout.
Okay.
Madam Clerk, on this motion, and we'll tackle
Yes.
enforcement through some intergovernmental relations and some
Coun-
ordinances.
Council Member Fernandez.
Yes.
Council Member Dieguez.
Yes.
Council Member Collazo. Council Member Ruano.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Rodriguez.
Yes?
And Mayor Sid.
Yes.
The motion passes.
So far, we've made 2 changes to that MOU. It's in regards to Jakey's Park, and then now in regards to the truck. Are there any other motions on the table? I see both.
And change the word ramps.
Yeah, we're not
Then
there yet.
I'll go to the attorney last, but I
Okay,
know there's council
okay.
members that have their hands up, so
All
we
right.
can, they can move forward. I see, I'll let
Let
me
me
get
finish.
one, and then, you finish?
Yeah, I have a bunch.
Yeah,
All right, so section 6, this is an easy one, should have been deleted a long time ago. Electric golf carts. I make a motion to remove electric golf carts from being able to pass over 154th.
Second.
Discussion on this. I know you were the golf cart king. What changed?
I don't believe it's good to have them in the same specific. It's going to be a small area, pedestrian. So I'd rather see golf carts on the streets.
Got it.
Coming soon.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes. We're on to the next one.
All right. In 6A, Mr. Attorney, I believe this is contemplated or suggested in here. I just want to clean up the language.
Where to?
The 3 construction projects, 97th to 186, 87th, two left turn lanes, and completion of 170th from 102 to 97. Those are all preconditions to the committee meeting. So,
Okay.
I
Yes, I agree.
I want to clarify that in this language. So this is my change. Starting in 6A, it should read, subject to the, then insert Romanet 1,
Okay.
improvements, continue that sentence, all the way to the 4th line where it says, which shall be determined by Miami-Dade County,
Comma 2.
Romanet 2 should read, the construction of improvements to the intersection of Northwest 87th Avenue and Northwest 186th Street by Miami-Dade County, which shall include 2 left-hand turn lanes, and then insert from northbound Northwest 87th Avenue to westbound 186th Street that will allow traffic to turn west. That's Romanet 2, comma. Insert Romanet 3, the construction of an extension of Northwest 170th Street from 97th Avenue to 102nd Avenue, because it's my understanding.
Make it 170. Make them extend it to 170. Let them figure it out.
To the Turnpike.
Yeah.
All right,
Make
then
it,
leave
I'm
it
sorry,
at,
the
then leave it
Turnpike.
at to the Turnpike. The understanding is that they won't have to do the portion past 102 because that's part of the state's project. But
Yeah.
okay, so those are my motions. I want to make sure that the traffic study committee is subject to Romanet 1, Romanet 2, and Romanet 3.
Okay.
And then
I
it'll
will second the
continue to
motion.
say the parties shall jointly create a committee.
There's a second on there. Council discussion on this, discussion on this, discussion on this.
There's one item there that references a
Councilman
timeline of 2 years. I don't know if you want to have that inserted in the language as well.
There was.
I'm sorry, 3 years.
No, it's both, I think. There's a place where I think I told them they had to do 87th Avenue in 2
Right,
years.
so 87th is 2 years and 170th is 3 years. So that language is gonna stay there. This is just adding the concept of the construction is subject, the opening of the meeting of the committee is subject to those 3 things happening within the timeframes that are already here. So that would be the motion.
Thank you for clarifying that. Any further discussion, council? Any further discussion, council? See none. Yes, Councilman Ron.
I had a question on that particular, on section A. 4th line, right, it says improvements.
I'm sorry. I'm trying to follow you. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
The clerk has it well, right? I know the clerk's always on point, so she's,
She has it.
so yeah, we
This
got your back, Mr. Attorney. The
No,
clerk.
No, I'm talking
Gina
about
has-
where Maryland is.
Yes, I'm sorry. In that same section that we're correcting or including all of these components, on the 3rd line, it says improvements at the end, improvements which shall be determined by Miami-Dade County. Does that mean that Miami-Dade County gets to determine whether it's an improvement or not? Like, can they
No.
like do a little something and call it an improvement?
No. So the reason there was language, and I discussed this with Keith, the reason why it's open as to how they connect 97th to 186 is that it may not be 97th per se that connects to 186. Because if the mall ever happens, 97th runs straight through the middle of the mall. And if you've seen a design of the mall, the idea is 97th runs up to an abutting point. The street then goes left and right, and it's a perimeter road that circles around the mall and connects up to 186. So they needed the ability to do it that way, if that's
Okay,
in the
understood. I was
plans.
just bringing it up because we were amending that section.
On that, was there, you made a motion? Was there a second? Yep.
Yes.
Got it. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, the motion passes. Anything else? I think you're limited on the amount of amendments.
That's it. I'm
Okay.
gonna let Councilman Dieguez go.
Councilman Dieguez is about to make a point of order there.
The First Amendment I'd like to add, and I'm actually really taking from Mr. Halperin's suggestions, is that the parties need to add to their county, state, and federal lobbying priorities list the Gratney ramps, the ramps connecting to the Gratney, as a lobbying priority. You know, so again, that I think that's still possible.
Yeah, but that's not from him, that's from all of us. We've all been talking about lobbying and everything else.
Second.
I don't know that I understand your objection.
My point is, we've all been talking about lobbying and getting these changes after the fact. In fact, I was talking to Commissioner
Well, I wasn't
Diaz.
there, so I don't know what you guys were discussing.
We've
Jeff
all
was
been-
there. I wasn't there.
Mr. Attorney, what
Yeah.
Councilman Dieguez is saying is for the county to add it as part of their priorities.
And for Hialeah as well, for
Yeah,
us.
not to say it's but for them, we know that you've been advocating it for pushing it, but what Councilman Dieguez is saying is for Hialeah and the county to make it a legislative priority with MDX, with the state, with our partners.
The same way we
He's
do
not
every
saying you
legislative
haven't been
session.
doing it.
Yeah, and again, that's addressing Councilman Collazo's, request that we at least reference those ramps and try and take some affirmative step towards making them happen.
I second that motion.
Discussion on this, seeing none. All those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes. Councilman Dieguez.
The second amendment that I have is, from his list, is to include language that, as to 154th Street and 170th Street, that they will not be widened without the consent of the jurisdiction in which the widening is sought. In other words, if that you can't expand the lanes on either side of those bridges without, say, Hialeah's consent, if they're seeking the widening on that side, or on our side as well, that they would need our consent, as part of that. That would be my motion.
Second.
That makes a lot of sense, especially with the investments that we made on.
Exactly,
On the,
our canopy and everything else, so, the Miglo Trail.
Yep.
So.
Discussion,
I'll tell her.
discussion on this. Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes. Councilman Dieguez.
My final amendment to address Councilwoman Morano's concern, and it's more about just adding clarity to the language, is perhaps after all the times it talks about unrestricted vehicular traffic, adding some kind of language, subject to the restrictions in paragraph 5, which has to do with
Second.
Discussion on this.
Second.
Discussion on this.
Too
There's
late.
2 seconds. Wow.
You're a third.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, the motion
Mr. Just to clarify for
Tell me what-
Mr. Attorney.
Right.
Any reference to vehicular traffic over 154th should have the same restrictions as the section 5 on 170.
The references state unrestricted vehicular traffic.
I know they do.
You know they do.
I know 100% that they do.
They shouldn't.
It already passed. All right, we're moving on.
And then
Yeah,
there were
but
just
that's
a
a
few
problem.
points I wanted to address. Councilwoman
I hope with
Morano-
all these changes, we're going to get unanimous vote on this. Because everybody's voting for these
Listen, even
changes in
Keith
the
is in favor.
agreement.
Keith got his stuff in here now, so even Keith's in favor.
I just wanted to address a few points. So 6B does specify that the ramps have to be built, yes, that it has to be built before that restriction about the committees goes away. It's in the first line. It says, in the event that a slip ramp is constructed, meaning actually built, that is the requirement. Not that it's added to some plan, not that there's some approval given, it has to be physically built.
Can we add constructed and fully operational?
Mr. Attorney, this is on section, what is this?
It's on
This
page
is
9.
6B, the first line of 6B.
6B.
Councilman Dieguez wanted to read, in the event that slip ramps.
No. I'm not amending. I was just pointing out to her that it states constructed, that it's built.
So then Councilwoman Ruano has a motion. Councilwoman?
I would like to include the language "and fully operational."
So it would read, in the event that slip ramps are constructed and
That's fine.
fully operational.
Okay, that's fine.
I'll second that. Any discussion on that change? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? See none, the motion passes. We're on to you have anything else, Councilman Dieguez?
I'm checking my list here. Oh, and the other point I wanted to address for Councilwoman Morano, and I believe Ms. Luce has also had the same, is that provision about rescinding the interlocal agreement is necessary for Hialeah to even vote on the memorandum of understanding, because otherwise they would be taking an affirmative step in the direction of opening up 154th. They certainly are advocating for opening up 154th and violating the agreement with their words, but they have not, other than taking a vote to try and unilaterally rescind the interlocal, they have not actually taken a sort of concrete step toward opening it. So to even vote on this, in my opinion, yeah, they would need to also include language about rescinding the interlocal. That is why I believe that is in there.
But let me ask you something. We wouldn't be able to leave it in there until, just say, when the committee meets in 10 years. Like if the committee decides to open 154 or the slip ramps, then it becomes null and void. But it's kind of like a way to.
But
we can do that. Go ahead.
The interlocal agreement has a lot of prohibitions on what Hialeah can do. They can't advocate. They can't donate land. They can't. Off the top of my head, I don't remember them all. But
can there be language in there that can say something to the effect of, look, it won't be enforceable. We're gonna keep it there. We're not gonna rescind it. It's not gonna disappear, but we won't enforce until, just to keep it, but it stays as an agreement until, it'll be null and void when the committee meets or something like that.
I think I understand what you're saying. I suppose in a way you could, and it would be the equivalent of an amendment to the agreement, right? Because if we're both consenting to it, that would be a separate writing that amends what's there. But again, I don't know how you would word that.
Are we in violation of that agreement by voting on this?
No.
No. Even though we are voting to at some point open this
We
bridge?
are not restricted in our ability to advocate.
It's only Hialeah that is restricted.
Hialeah is restricted, which they violated 100 different ways, where they're not supposed to advocate for it or anything else. Where the teeth is in the RTA, which I went through at length today in our memo, is that they are not allowed to allow for the donation of land or use of their land or anything like that. That has some very significant weaknesses to it, but we could talk about that in another session. Look, this agreement, the purpose and the plan walking in here today was to take an agreement, pass it, get it to them, and litigate. If we're going to start talking about amending the RTA, the interlocal and everything else, I can do it, but we don't have an agreement, and we either have an agreement that we pass on, and I tell the judge to hold off on the litigation.
What do you
recommend?
What do you recommend?
I recommend that we leave it as it is.
Okay.
I recommend that's my recommendation. Okay. Either that, or we can take another stab at it and come back another day, which I'm perfectly willing to do. But that's not why we convened today.
We have two council members that want to chime in.
But I also don't want to, if we are going to pass something tonight, I want it to be the final text. So what I'm going to be requesting, once we make all of these changes, is to take a recess to allow you guys to actually type it out. I do this with my mediations all the time that run late, because I don't want to get up from the table until it's done. So I would rather, rather than approve something and just say, you guys go ahead and fill in the blanks, and then, it goes out, I'd rather we just recess for a bit, let the attorneys actually draft the language, and then come back to us with everything that we have, or that we've added.
So let's get through the amendments, but I know there's two council members that raise their hand. You have the vice mayor and you have Councilman Collazo.
All right, so the reason I think that I'm gonna go with the attorney's recommendation is the purpose of this agreement is to squash litigation on either bridge going forward, right? So if we have an agreement that is questionable on our side and their side, leaving it there is only going to foster further litigation. And I think the intent of this is to reach an understanding where we are not litigating over this issue anymore. So that's why I think we should leave it in.
Okay, was there any motion on the table, Councilman Dieguez? Anything else you have?
No, I just wanted to address those points that were made, and I already made the 3 amendments that I actually was seeking to make.
All right, any further amendments before we take a recess and the attorneys can draft this up so we can take a final vote? Councilman Collazo has not spoken and he had his hand up.
My question is a follow-up to what the vice mayor was presenting and kind of some of the comments that you were making, Mr. Attorney. And through the chair, I can hear kind of you under your breath saying, certain things as we're talking, right? And it's you trying to catch up.
Yeah.
And my concern is exactly the point that the vice mayor made. Are we sinking this deal?
I have my concerns.
Okay.
But, I have my concerns.
Because it speaks directly to the point that the vice mayor is trying to make, right? If everybody here is working in the spirit of not litigating this anymore, this exercise that we're participating in right now will almost guarantee future litigation. And I want to hear where you believe that maybe we should reconsider some of these amendments.
I think the Jakey Duca Park needs to be reconsidered.
I disagree with you wholeheartedly.
Okay, the mayor knows better than I do because he did the negotiations. So if he disagrees, leave it. I'm not saying to take it out. I think that's
I just want to hear what you have to say.
The issue on Northwest 154th Street and the trucks, that's going to be a problem. Look, pass it. Put the ball in their court. They're the ones putting the heat on me to either litigate or let's come to a resolution. Put it in their court. This is not a good deal. This is a deal. Listen, we signed 2 agreements, okay? An interlocal agreement and a road transfer agreement to prevent these types of issues. And we're still having headaches. So enough.
And I'm sorry to interrupt you, but after signing this one, we'll be back here at the same place
We
at
may
some
well
juncture.
be. We may well be. So look, put a deal in front of them and let's move on.
Okay.
Put a deal in front of them and let's move on.
And I think I got it. So then why wouldn't we add 67th and 87th? Right? If that's
No, because that's a deal breaker.
Okay.
No, then we're done.
So there's some
Then
things.
we're done.
Okay, got it.
Because you need 7 votes, because you need 7 votes on the county commission. And the understanding, there may not be the political will to have that level of uncertainty as Councilman Dieguez alluded to. The level of uncertainty on those other projects is much higher than the projects that we put on their radar that is 100% within their control. So
We're going to take a 10-minute recess to allow the attorneys to draft this up and then bring this,
Well, I have
other
one
amendment.
more amendment, yes.
Yes, Councilwoman Ron.
Number 6C,
Hold on. I'm going.
Miami Lakes and Hialeah acknowledge that Miami-Dade County and not Miami Lakes or Hialeah will do the planning, design, construction for the improvements on 154th Street. It says neither Miami Lakes nor Hialeah shall raise any objections. That needs to be reworded because we may very well have an objection to something. It's
Where are you reading from?
third line from the bottom
What
on
page?
C, page 11. Next page, third line from the bottom on C. Right above number 7.
okay, that's 6E.
Oh, I'm sorry, E.
Oh, goodness gracious.
That's
Okay,
how tired I
why
am, that Cs look like Es.
So what was the change?
where it says neither Miami Lakes nor Hialeah shall raise any objections. I'm not willing to give up any objection that I may have. That Miami-Dade County has the sole right to design, plan, construct. Jakey Duque Park comes into play here. That might be a reasonable objection. I would put any unreasonable objections. I mean, what if they want to do something crazy on the bridge and then we just signed off on being able to object?
Yeah, but we're talking about, hold on, this is, we'll do the planning,
This is
design, and
relating to
construction.
the green
Related to the
trail.
green trail.
Right. That's just the green trail.
So we know we're not gonna have any objections? We haven't seen their designs or plans or anything. How do we know we're not gonna have an objection?
Do you want to put unreasonable objections?
I would like to add some language that gives us at least the right to say something. I mean,
There's a motion on the table for unreasonable objections. I'll second it, I guess. No, I fell back. I mean, they were like, he made a motion. No, he made a motion. No, but Jeff made a motion, and you
No,
didn't
no, it
second
was her motion. It wasn't my
Oh,
motion.
I thought it was your motion.
I was just clarifying it. It's
I was
her
like-
motion.
I don't know, discussion. No, hopefully it comes back this way. Hopefully I get a second one day too, so, yeah.
So are we voting on that, or?
No, wait, discussion on this? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, call the roll on this one.
Councilmember Ruano.
yes.
Councilmember Collazo.
Yes.
Councilmember Fernandez.
Yes.
Councilmember Dieguez.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Rodriguez.
Yes.
And Mayor Sid.
Yes.
The motion passes.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Should I aprovechar and start making motions, or yes, to take, no. All right, any other motions? If not, we're going to recess for 10 minutes and allow Lorenzo's typing so fast. He is working on being a court reporter. Yeah, so we're taking a recess for 10 minutes.
Don, are we back live? Don?
Don, we are live.
IT? Yes, I think we're live. Thank you, Don.
We're going to be restarting. Our recess has concluded. The attorneys have memorialized all the changes that have been made. And I know there's already a motion that has been amended various times, a main motion that was amended various times. So we're back on to that main motion as amended. Is there any further discussion, council?
Yes.
Councilman Dieguez.
And I'll be brief. I just wanted to put on the record again that just because we pass this tonight does not mean that there is an actual deal. It still has to go to the city of Hialeah, then it will go to the county, and it can fail at either one of those points. If it fails, then it fails. But this does represent, for me at least, the extent of which I'm willing to go. And as we saw tonight, we've added a few additional items in there that make it better. It's still not an ideal deal, but again, it is the least bad option in my view. And for that reason, I will be voting to send this forward.
Further discussion, council, further discussion, council. Anybody else want to chime in before we take a vote? Just wanted to say, give the reason why I'll be voting in affirmative. I talked about it earlier, you know, weighing the policy and weighing the politics, which is factual. The politics for me outweighs the policy completely, right? If we would keep litigating, like I said before, politically, I'd be on TV every day, be in the news, be on the radio every day, and enjoying that benefit. But I can't. I feel bad going in that direction as my conscience, as the leader of this community, as the mayor, knowing that there are certain things like the no trucks, having those improvements that are very important, and bringing this all together, hopefully to an end, and moving forward on this MOU that future generations, especially on 154, which was always our most important road, hopefully not only stays closed, but we'll have a mechanism where we are in control of those conversations moving forward. So, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Council Member Dieguez.
Yes.
Council Member Collazo.
No.
Council Member Fernandez.
Yes.
Council Member Ruano.
No.
Vice Mayor Rodriguez.
Yes.
Mayor Sid.
Yes.
The motion is amended, passes.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. We are on to no other item. If there are no other motions, we are officially adjourning.